so much. The owner of the car with license plate, no, that's not it. Okay, so Mary. We know Mary, right? We heard the stories surrounding Mary, the mother of Jesus, since early times in Sunday school. But I have had a hard time, and I'm wondering if maybe you had a hard time disassociating the Virgin, divine, Mary, Mother of God, visited by angels, with a 13-year-old girl who finds herself in a strange predicament. We often think about the sainted Mary, right? When we think of her, we don't think about the young girl who's visited by an angel and says, oh, guess what? Joseph, who you've been with, who you shall marry, who shall be your husband, I'm asking you to put that on hold for a little bit, because the Lord is going to make sure that you deliver his son. Now, I don't care how old you are or what gender you are, that news has got to shake you to your core, doesn't it? And Mary, according to what we read in the Bible, Mary just takes it in as if it's the tremendous amount of faith that she has, right? Here this angel's telling her, God is telling her. And I'm sure she questioned it, but she didn't say, wait, no, let me get my lawyer, or wait, I'm going to think about this, or wait, my mom needs to be in the room with me to hear this, or anything like that. She has such faith and such trust that she doesn't, as far as we know, look down the road to what may be. She probably doesn't immediately think, what's this going to do to my standing in society, right? Because that kind of was questioned. What's this going to do to my relationship with Joseph? Is he going to believe me? Right? What's my mom going to think? Here I am, I'm between 12 and 14 years old is what most scholars think. Here I am, and I've just been told that I'm going to birth the Son of God. Wow. And she says, I'm ready. I'll do this. I trust in the Lord. Wow. From that moment forward, her life had just totally changed. She was not a normal, typical 12 to 14-year-old girl after that. We know about the story of her and Joseph needing to go to register during the census, and they go back to Bethlehem, which is their lineage, and she's great with child, right? She's like 8, 9 months along, riding on a donkey on a long journey, and they get there and there's no place to stay. Right there, I think, is where I would have hung it up. I would have said, too much, too much. Talk about being thrown up against a wave of the rocks of ages, right? Kissing that wave, embracing that struggle, realizing that all of this stuff that you've been carrying around with you since the angel came, and now it's ready to happen. And I'm not at home. I don't have mother with me. I don't have my best girlfriends with me. I've got my fiance with me, who probably is still questioning everything I do from this point forward, right? We're in a strange city. We don't know where we're going to stay. And I'm about to have a baby. Would that rock you to your core? Would that send your head spinning? I know it would mine. But all we know about Mary, all that's written about Mary, is how wonderful she was, how gracious she was, how protective she was. Everything was focused on her child. And then I know that when my children were born, only my first wife's mother and her one sister were allowed in the delivery room or in the hospital room with the baby, like the next day. They didn't let in immense quantities of shepherds into the hotel room, right? Or into the hospital room. All of a sudden, we know that these shepherds are told, this wonderful thing has happened. We must go and see. Yes. Let's all of us go down and force our presence on this 12 to 14-year-old girl who just gave birth in a barn without anybody around. It's miraculous, is it not? And we don't know. There's no record of what Mary thought. There have been many poems and songs and arias and things written after that about what people thought Mary went through. And she's always portrayed as a very wise, very discerning, very gracious mother. Fast forward. There is another incident, not mentioned by name, but they find out that King Herod is trying to kill their son, right? And he's not only trying to kill their son, he's using a plan, since he doesn't know where their son is, he's using a plan to kill all the boys of a certain age. All the firstborn boys of a certain age. Now, can you remember back in grade school, and you were the one that made a joke under your breath in history class, and the teacher heard something, right? And nobody would fess up, and everybody had to stay in at recess. Did that ever happen to you guys? It happened to me quite a bit, where you get corporate punishment. Everybody gets punished because of something one kid did who's afraid to be honest. That was no fun, was it? That's what Herod's doing. He's wiping out all the little boys at that time. So I know that when I was the one that made the wisecrack that made the whole class stay in a recess, and it happened quite a bit, I did not learn. By the time I got home, and like my sister was a grade ahead of me and my brother was a grade below me, and they would say something like, because we all went out to recess together, right? They would say, how come your class wasn't playing recess? I was going to challenge you in Foursquare or jump rope or whatever. Like, we had to stay in. Why'd you have to stay in? Oh, somebody said something. It was me. The whole class was punished because of me. And as soon as my brother or sister brought it to my attention that, boy, that was stupid of you, the guilt came in. So Mary and Joseph are warned. This thing is happening. All of these little babies are being slaughtered because the king is worried about your son, that he's going to take his place. How do you feel? How do you feel knowing that the fact that you had this child is instrumental in all these other children dying? Do you think Mary had a lot on her plate as a young girl? My goodness, we don't often think about that. So they go a different way. They detour through Egypt. That's not on the route at all. And then there are these three kings that come see her, you know. So Mary and Joseph, by this time, it doesn't happen at the stable like it's usually portrayed in all the nativity scenes. But Mary and Joseph, by this time, have gone home, and they're starting to what they would say back in the 50s was to start housekeeping, right? To build a house and build a life, and they've got this toddler, and all of a sudden, bum-ba-da-bum, here come these three kings into Mary's living room. Would that cause a little anxiety? Would that be strange? I know that when we have unannounced drop-in guests, even if it's the Merkles bringing us a cake, you wonder, is my house clean enough, right? Oh my, did I leave the trash that I was going to take to the trash can on the front stoop? I have, haven't I? And you guys are usually very good about that. You worry, is this presentable? What are they going to think about me? What are they going to think about me as a mother? What are they going to think about me as a housekeeper, as Joseph's wife? Three kings have been traveling for years, and they come to your, what was it then, like an apartment? A duplex? Where were they staying? Next thing we know, Mary and Joseph, as they do every year at Passover time, head into Jerusalem. They make an offering. They travel with their families. They start going back as a big family unit. And somewhere around day 1.5, day 2, they get to realize that, hey, Jesus isn't playing with his cousins. He didn't spend last night in the tent with the other group of kids that are all on this journey together. We've lost our only child. Any of you lost a child in a grocery store? My brother got lost in a grocery store once. We were playing hide and seek, but still, he did get lost. And I know my mom was petrified. She was terrified. I can't imagine very many worse feelings as a parent of a small child when all of a sudden you can't remember where that child is, and especially if there are crowds around. So they travel back for a day. They travel back and they find him. And what then pre-teen Jesus says is, "Oh, come on, Mom, didn't you know I'd be here?" Nothing like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you must have gone through great stress searching for me. Oh, this will never happen again." No. Her teenage son says, "Mom, this is where I was going to be. You knew that." At that point, do we think of Mary as the frustrated mother? She's what now? She's 24, 25? Still very, very young. And her child is in the synagogue teaching the leaders and the preachers. And she comes upon the scene, and imagine when your kid in grade school or your grandchild is up on the stage performing in the Christmas play or singing in the spring musical or spring choir assembly or whatever, and you're sitting there in the chair in the audience. Can you recreate that feeling of pride in your heart when you're looking at something that your child is doing that's just like, wow, I'm so proud of them. They're so brave to be up there in front of everybody. They're so brave to be showing what they know. Jesus is teaching the smart people about scriptures. Mary, 25 years old, is standing there thinking, wow, this is my kid. I need a bumper sticker. My kid was student of the month. He taught the synagogue leaders. That's amazing. We don't hear a lot more about Mary then until Jesus' first recorded miracle. They're at a wedding. Family members are all there. Apparently it's a great celebration. And the hosts have run out of wine. Mary is the one that takes care of the problem. Mary is the one that says, oh, my relatives are going to be embarrassed because people are starting to look around wondering, where's the good stuff? We've still got 2 more hours in this wedding celebration, and they're out of wine. Maybe even had run out. We don't know, but their emphasis is on the wine. And Mary takes it upon herself to go find Jesus and say, hey, fix this. She doesn't say please. She just says fix this. I know you can do that. So before Jesus even performs his very first miracle, here's his mother telling him that she believes he can perform this first miracle. I'd never thought about that before until I started working on this today. Mary knew at that wedding, Mary knew all I have to do is go to Jesus and this problem will be taken care of. Jesus didn't come to her. Maybe her friends or relatives who were throwing the party came to Mary and said, oh, have you ever been in a situation like this? What should we do? Should somebody run to the 7-Eleven? What's going to happen? Mary's like, wait a minute. I've got a simple fix. My kid can pretty much do anything. Now, I'm thinking she also had to think, do I have a right to ask him that? What's he going to think of me? I don't think she did think that. I just think she knew Jesus will fix it. And so she went to him, and she didn't ask him, she told him, fix this. And then, here's the part I love, she tells everybody else in the room, do whatever he tells you to do. I don't know that my mother's ever said that to anybody. Trust my son, do whatever he tells you to do. And there's probably good reason for that, but Mary knows that Jesus can do this. And it's his first recorded miracle. And he takes care of the party. He tells the stewards what to do. They pour out the best wine any of them have ever had. And I'm picturing Mary kind of back, kind of in the periphery of the crowd, thinking, yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy. She knew. And then the last instance with Mary and Jesus together is at the cross. Now, I don't want to put a dark cloud on Mother's Day, but that had to have done it, huh? A mother being there witnessing her son being crucified. Jesus talks to his divine Father near the end of his time on the cross, but the only other group that he addresses, the only other people he addresses is his mother and the person that he's releasing her care into, his beloved. He says, woman, here's your son. Son, here's your mother. He's on the cross for all of us. He's on the cross for all the unbelievers. He's on the cross for all the sinners. He's on the cross to change history. And the one act that he performs besides that is to worry about his mother, to take care of his mother, to let her know that she was going to be okay. She didn't have to worry about it. Now here's where I like to think. As we get to this point, Jesus is probably 33 years old. That's the kind of the common sense of how old he is. Mom, we know, is only what, 12 or 13 years older than him? So she's still, she's in her 40s. She's in her 40s. And her son is up there. Now, she lives another 11 years after Jesus' death. That's the recording that most scholars believe is accurate. So she's not even 60 when she dies. And there's not much more of her, there's nothing more of her in the Bible, but in other writings and in other faith traditions, there are some stories, but that's kind of the last. She's there when he takes his last breath, and right before he does, he says, in essence, Mom, don't worry. Now here's where you really have to put on your imaginative thinking cap. So let's go back to Mary with the angel Gabriel, finding out that she's going to have this child in a really strange and bizarre way. Remembering what she has to go through in order to deliver the child, and how her life was turned upside down after that. And then those kind of foggy years in between, where we have the story of the boy, the 12-year-old Jesus at the temple, and then at the wedding at Cana, right at the beginning of Christ's actual physical ministry. All that time in there, what was that relationship like? What was Mary thinking when Jesus went off to school? Or what was Mary thinking as she was washing the dishes, looking out the window as Jesus was playing with the other kids in the neighborhood? Or what was Mary thinking when they gathered at the meal and they said their prayers, or they did their rituals, traditions? What was she thinking as she's noticing that he's growing into a young man? And then as he becomes a young man, and she goes to him with all faith and confidence and says, you can fix this problem here at the wedding. Where is it that you thought that you think maybe it started to sink into Mary that this extraordinary child who came into my life in such extraordinary ways and has turned everything totally upside down, how's this going to end? You think she had a sense of Christ's ultimate sacrifice? How did she reckon that? How did she order her days? What was she thinking? I know what I would be thinking if Mary were my mother. I would be thinking that I got the luckiest roll of the dice. I got the best mother ever. There's nothing about this woman that I can complain about. I will never cause her a moment's harm or grief in my life because she loves me with everything that she is and everything that she has. And she didn't ask for any of it. She did not ask for any of it. That's what mothers do. That's the kind of love that mothers have. And many of us that have never been a mother, have never given birth, and have never had somebody looking at us with a crayon drawn piece of paper that says Happy Mother's Day. We've had people in our lives that we've loved like that, haven't we? We've had people that we wished we could take away that pain. We wished they didn't have to go through the struggles they're going through. We wished we could offer more of ourselves so that they didn't do that. So it didn't happen to them. That's Mary to me. There are all kinds of stories in nature of mother animals protecting their young. The couple that's staying at our house last night and are there waiting for me to make breakfast, they reminded me that there was a story about a loon that had pierced the heart of an eagle as it was attacking the loon's babies. And it was somewhere up here. Now, I didn't look it up, but I don't have any reason to think that they made that story up and they're lying about it. But I know there are lots of stories of mother birds, mother cats, leading off the attacker away from the nest, right? When I went to Portland to begin this exploration into ministry, the booklet that they gave us had a picture of a pelican on the front. And I thought that was odd. Do any of you know why the pelican is portrayed as a symbol of Christianity? You do. So I'm not making this up.
No, you're not making it up.
So a mother pelican, if her children are hungry, will pierce her own breast to feed them the blood of her own body so that they survive. It's one of the, I don't know, are there other animals that do that? Or is that the only one that it's recorded that a pelican will do that? A pelican will absolutely, while it is still living, sacrifice its life for its children, if need be. That's a mother. Wow. So the point of all this is not to make you disparage because you don't measure up to Mary. No, none of us are going to measure up to Mary. Mary is Mary. I'm Jeff. You're Lucille. You're Susan. You're Sue. You're Nita. You were created. You were created the same way that Mary was. By the same loving Creator, with the same purpose. To nourish people, to love people, to protect people, whether they be your family or the people that are in your charge. Maybe it's your job to be a protector. Maybe it's your job to be a first responder. Maybe it's your job to be a medical person, a nurse, or a therapist, or somebody that helps other people. It's the same for all of us. Not one of us is any better or any less valuable than anyone else. Well, I think Jesus really got lucky with Mary. I think that was pretty cool. And I love that we don't really hear all the stuff about Mary that, like when I think about some of the things that my mom and I went through, it's not pretty. I know it doesn't appear this way, but I was a hard child to raise. And there were times when Mom and I would have knockdown drag-outs and we'd say things to each other that I still regret to this day. And I know she still loved me with everything she had. I'm glad I don't know that about Mary. I'm glad I don't have any kind of documentation saying that she had to ground Jesus because of something he had done. Of course, he's not going to do that. But we don't know about Mary's bad days. We don't know anything about whether or not she actually did have other children or not. There are some scholars that think that she never did have other children, and there are some scholars that think that she and Joseph did. There's a lot we don't know about her, but every single time that she and Jesus are in the Bible together, she comes out a rock star. And I think the reason for that is so that we can get a glimpse into how blessed we are with the mother we have. So think about your own mother. Every one of us has had one of those. Every one of us has had one of those. Think of your own mother. That life with your mother, that got you where you are today. That's the reason, Nita, you're sitting in that bench there, instead of whatever other choices you might make. Everything that's happened in your life has brought you to this point. It's made you who you are. It's made you a beloved child of God. And we really need to thank our mothers for the role they played in that.